Alright, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and as part of the Rankin Technical College AWD, or Application and Website Development Program, and in particular the AWD 1111 or .NET Framework with Web Databases class, I have been creating a series of video presentations based on the textbook we'll be using for this class for the fall 2019 semester. As you can see on screen, the book is Pro ASP.NET MVC 5, an A-Press publication by Adam Freeman. I'm working my way through Chapter 25 of 27. So we're talking about validating data models. And I'm on page 713, where the author says the most direct way to validate a model is to do so in the action method. So if you notice in here, what we've done is we've said if you leave the client name empty, alright, to say please enter your name. If you either leave the date if it's valid and if it's greater than the current date, alright, please enter a date in the future. So if let's see, if model state.isValid date and datetime.now is greater than the appointment date. So if you have put a value in there, but you put in a value that, for instance, I'll put in a value from a year ago, we should get a message that says please enter a date in the future. Okay? If you don't check the checkbox to accept the terms and conditions, you'll get this. So if you have put in valid data for all three of these fields, then model state will be valid. But if you only want to return this if indeed it is valid. So let's grab that, and you can see this. So let's come into our home controller, and we're going to change this. In fact, I'm just going to grab all that. Okay, don't worry, we'll fix that momentarily. And then we'll grab all of this. Alright, that should clean everything up. So let's look at what we've got here. Alright, well, somehow I've removed. Have I removed part of what was here? Yep. So let's just grab everything from the post on, copy it. Don't know exactly what I did there, but that's okay. We'll get it fixed in just a second. Alright. There, that prettied it up also. Alright, go to our next page. This should fix everything up. Alright, all the errors are gone. And it is, again, the logic that I just mentioned to you. So we check the values to make sure everything looks good. Okay, I've already gone over this with you, so I don't think I really have to. Excuse me, after we validated all the properties, we read the model state.isValid property to see if there were any errors. This method returns true if we call the model.state.addError method. All right. So if everything was valid, okay, we're going to do this. Otherwise, we're just going to return them back to the view they were at. Okay. All right. Before we display that, let's try it. So let's do a file, save all, and let's run the program. And again, we want to go to home / make booking. All right. And let's just click it. Well, notice what happens. It's showing us every place where we are in error. So I come in here and I put in my name. Now that's undone. Okay, let's put in a value here, but let's put in a value in the past. So June 1st. Okay, notice, although it's not showing us an error, it's making it red because we have made an error. We've tried to book an appointment that is in the past, which doesn't make a lot of sense. So let's change it to this. And now notice, oh, that's all that's left. All right, so I click there, boom, and everything's fine. As the author says, again, I know I have a valid appointment object if there are no problems reported by the isValid property, and I can render the completed.cshtml. All right, if the isValue property is, I think that should be isValid property is false up here, I know I've got a problem. All right, so it may seem odd to deal with a validation error by calling the view method, but the templated view helpers that we used to generate input elements, they check the model for validation errors. Should make sense. The helpers add a CSS class called input-validation-error to the input elements if an error has been reported to be problematic. All right. It says, which is why I added these CSS styles to the layout when I created the example project. All right, so this is stuff that we put into our layout_layout.cshtml file, which gave the background color and the red, you have pink here and the red border. So the first style, as it says, creates the effect of setting the red border with a pink background. The second style applies the red border to the checkbox. Okay. All right, styling checkboxes on page 715. Styling checkboxes can be difficult, especially with older browsers. An alternative to the CSS styles we defined earlier is to replace the Boolean editor template with a custom template, which we could put under our view shared editor templates, boolean.cshtml, which we created in an earlier chapter, and then wrap the checkbox in another element. All right. Looks to me like it's more work. So, I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing it that way. All right. When you submit the form without any data, errors are highlighted for the client name and terms accepted property. The default value that displayed for the date property is a valid date. Well, mine wasn't. But it is not in the future, so it's flagged as a validation error. Mine said mm/dd/yyyy. The user will not be shown the completed.cshtml file until the form is submitted with data that can be parsed. So in other words, with valid data. All right. Okay, displaying validation messages. The classes that the templated helper methods apply to input elements indicate there are problems or none with the field. It says, but it does not tell the user exactly what the problem is. So what we can do, all right, is in our makebooking.cshtml file, is we can come in there and add this. All right, and I think we're actually supposed to replace all of it. What was in there? Much of it was pretty much the same as what we had earlier. All right, the key takeaway or the key line is the one right here, the validation summary. So file, save all. Let's run the program again and iterate our way over to the make booking. Again, now we will leave every field blank, and notice what we get. Please enter your name. The date field is required. You must accept the terms. Come in here, we put in our name. See how that's gone. How about now if we go back, and again, we don't have a default date. So let's put in the first. Please enter a date in the future so you can see how the message changed. And you must accept the terms. Boom, everything's great. So as mentioned here on the bottom of page 716, the HTML.validation summary helper adds a summary of the validation errors to the user. There are no errors, all right? Everything will be fine, and it won't show you anything. I've already shown you this. The values shown for the date property in this chapter follow the U.S. date format of month, month, day, day, year, year. If you have to, you can change the locale in the web.config. Okay? All right. The validation summary then displays the error messages that were registered with the model state in the make booking action. It says here is the HTML that the helper method generates. Mine did not say please enter a date in the future. It said you must enter a date in the future. Okay? The errors are expressed as a list contained in a div element to which the validation-summary-errors class is applied. There are a number of overloaded versions of this method, and some of them are shown here, and most of them, in figure 25-2 that is on the top of page 718. By contrast, it says here, model level errors can be used when there is some problem arising from an interaction between two or more property values. So here's, in the home controller, notice what we have. So now what we've done is we're adding one more if statement. So let's jump back into our home controller. And I think I'm actually at the right place. So what do we have? If the model state field is valid, so if we put in a valid client name and we put in a valid date, again, I'm a little anal about this stuff because to me, when it all lines up, much easier to work with. And the client name is Joe. And the day of the week is Monday. Then you want to say, Joe cannot book appointments on Mondays. All right, so let's try this. Kind of a silly example or convoluted type of example, but let's go through it anyway. So for the name, we'll put in Joe. For the appointment date, we'll make sure it's a Monday. And we will accept the terms and conditions. Joe cannot book appointments on Mondays. Okay? All right. So before we check to see whether Joe can try to book on a Monday, we use the model state is valid field to ensure that the client has got valid values to work with. Again, kind of a silly example. And if you had hundreds of different patients here, if you're for appointments, and each of them had their own little idiosyncrasies, it would take you a long time to code up this for everybody. All right. Oops. Didn't want to do that. So I thought that's what we had already. Display only model level errors. Okay. So again, we're in our make booking.cshtml file. And we're going to change that to this. Okay, so we've added true there to just show us model level errors. What does that mean? Well, as the author mentions, when we go and run this again, all right, notice that the only thing we have in here is Joe cannot book appointments on Mondays, even though we have not checked the terms and conditions. All right. Says you can see the results. You can see from the figure there are actually two validation errors. The first is a model level error that arises from Joe trying to get an appointment on a Monday. The second is not considered a model level error, so since we set the summary to true, that one will not show. All right. All right, I'm running a little long on this, but I want to finish this section, so it's the next page and a half. Displaying property level validation messages. The reason you might want to restrict the validation summary to model level only, all right, is to display the property level errors alongside the fields themselves. So we've done another update here. All right, again, let's do a file, save all. And again, let's run the program. We will leave this blank. We will put a date in the past here, and we will leave this blank. So now what you're seeing is our model level errors. In fact, all of our errors, they're right up above. All right, they're right up above the error in question. So the validation summary puts it on the top, okay, by default. So if I come through here, make it Joe, come through here and make it again on a Monday, I'm still getting my model level up here, but the other errors I'm getting down here. Okay, all right. Just make sure that I've done a save all on that. Okay, so we are up to the middle of page 721, which is entitled Using Alternative Validation Techniques. And before I go into that, that will become the third part of our lesson, so I'll be back with that in just a couple.